This visual right here is just mainly for reference, all right? And the reference being this, basically. It was recently said by a one Mr. Yoshi P himself that basically when it comes to add-ons, and add-ons in 14, as far as things like DPS meters, some user interface add-ons and things like that, it is they are cracking down on them extremely hard. Now, they've always kind of been about that kind of stuff, but it was revealed recently that they are cracking down on them even harder, especially when it comes to DPS meters. Now, I'm going to play, not devil's advocate, but I'm going to kind of speak to both sides of this. So I'm not fence-sitting on the matter, because I do feel a certain way about it, but I'm going to kind of, talk about both sides of the fact, about the thing basically itself. So, when it comes to things like graphical add-ons like G-Shade, it's been whitelisted in 14 for a very long time now. So if anybody thinks, I'm going to get banned for using G-Shade, no, you're not going to get banned for using G-Shade. They themselves have used G-Shade before. So no, don't worry about using G-Shade, all right? But when it comes to things like DPS meters, or things like that, things that are actually used by the raiding community in Final Fantasy XIV, and I know that this is used by the raiding community in Final Fantasy XIV because the only feasible way that the people that run, say, the Balance Discord, which is one of the best raiding info hubs out there on Final Fantasy XIV raids and jobs, job maximization for raiding and stuff like that, they're one of the best ones. Well, feasibly, the only way that they can get that info is by using a DPS meter or a healing meter. So, the thing is, on one hand, people that are okay with this, I see where you're coming from, because a lot of people are apprehensive about it or don't like things like that because they think it encourages a very toxic environment within an MMORPG. And usually their biggest example they pull from that is World of Warcraft and how people act in dungeons. Yes, I've seen how people act in dungeons regarding, or raids or things like that. Why isn't your DPS high enough? Get out of the group. And it feels like it's something that could feel like, you're being singled out and stuff like that. And it's like, look, I understand. I get that. But it feels like it's a bit of number gate payment, get why it's a thing, but it's, and I'll explain the part in just a minute, But here's the thing, so I understand that, and I've seen that kind of behavior in a game like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. I've never seen it in 14 myself, but I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it's there, Lord knows every community has their turds. But I have seen it in World of Warcraft in the raiding scene and in the Mythic Plus scene. I have seen that firsthand, so I understand where the concern about toxicity in a community is coming from. And I will say this about the 14 community. I love them, but they themselves, and I don't mean offense to this, they themselves can get very gatekeepy. That's not it. That's not an insult. That's just calling a fact right there, That's just calling a fact, The 14 community themselves can get very gatekeepy about a lot of stuff. For the most part, people that have been migrating over from WoW, for the most part, from what I've seen, people have been very welcoming, especially, last year. When a lot more people were coming over because big name streamers were starting to stream 14, and a lot of people in WoW were just kind of getting tired of WoW shit. That was also coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally enough, when Activision Blizzard was a lot of shit came out about them. So a lot of people left the game en masse. A lot of them migrated to ESO. A lot of them migrated to 14. So I did see the plus side of that as far as the community, you know, welcoming these people, but I also saw a very gatekeeping type of response as well. People saying, we don't want WoW players in our game. We don't want Asmongold in our game. You know, things like that, because they're gonna come in here and ruin our beautiful, friendly community. And that in itself is the definition of gatekeeping. I'm sorry, that in itself is the definition of gatekeeping. You know, it is, you know, and there's no way to sugarcoat that. And then it turns out, oh, them coming over here really wasn't that big a deal. You know? Hell, Asmongold even got harassed. You know? Asmongold even got harassed when he migrated over here. People were bothering him, you know, whether they wanted them attention or they just wanted to shit on him. Now, I will say this about the 14 mod team, or Game Master team over there. When he reported those people bugging him and harassing him, they banned him on the spot. You know, so, you know, bravo to the GMs in Final Fantasy 14, you know. But to say that the 14 community is not gatekeeping, that is, let's don't kid ourselves here. You know, like the guy in the last video said, you know, drop your copium. This is a fact. And it is something that the 14 community does need to work on as far as accepting things. Now, here's why I say that, okay? And again, I love the 14 community. It's been, for me personally, nothing but a positive one. But you can't talk about something without talking about its flaws, and this is a flaw. Here's the thing about why people need to understand why, in my opinion, a DPS meter is essential to an MMORPG with high-end rating. I saw someone in the chat earlier say it's mostly for Ultimate, but that's the thing, it's not mostly for Ultimate. It is used for Ultimate, it is, but it is also used for EXs, and it's used for Savage, especially in the current expansion, because these EXs, especially Insinger EX, but especially the current wing of Savage raids, are very, very, very DPS heavy raids. And the reason why I say that is because the enrage timer is very short. For example, Ericthonius in Pandemonium Savage 1 has an enrage timer of about 10 minutes. So you basically have 10 minutes to delete his health bar. And at the time when he was current, not 6.1, back in 6.0, when he was current, it was basically to the point where you basically had to, and I know people are asking me questions in the chat here, but I'm not going to interrupt my thought to change what I'm talking about here. Sorry, guys. You basically had to not get hit. You know, you basically had to it got to the point with a lot of the statics that were running, you know, Pandemonium Savage raids, you could not afford a death just because the enrage timers were so short, you know, and still are. Insinger itself only has about an enrage timer of 11 minutes. So it really does demand that you make the least amount of mistakes as possible. And with an enrage timer of about 10 minutes, there's not a lot of room for mistakes. It got to the point, especially in my static, and I'm sure I might get a comment of, living your static sucks, and I'm like, well, we still beat it, so we got to the point where when we finally did beat it, one dropped. You know, we really only had one death, and that was at the very end, literally seconds before we killed it. But we had no deaths leading up to it. And it was getting to the point where previously, as we were progressing it, if 1 to 2 deaths happened, we were not going to make the enrage timer. So these are demanding things, and things like a DPS meter to help you improve on where in my rotation can I get better? Where in my rotation do I really need to pop my burst? Where do I need to pop my, you know, potion? You know, or you know, things like that. Where you know, where are the spots that I can get better, because these raids are so demanding on numbers. So that's why, in my opinion, I do believe that a DPS meter should be fine in 14. Now, I did say from Yoshi, or see from Yoshi earlier, and someone in the comments just put it there. Did Yoshi say he was looking for an in-game version? Supposedly he is, and if he is, that's great. But I do not think that it should be something that should be excluded completely from the game, because here's the deal. Y'all, using a DPS meter in an MMORPG is not cheating. It's not. It's not cheating. Look, if it's cheating in 14, then it's cheating in WoW. And anybody that raids in WoW, 9 out of 10 people are going to use recount or some DPS meter of some kind. They just are. It's in a game about numbers, you have to see where your numbers are at. It's just how it is, you know? I mean, that's just how it is, you know? And it's fine. You know, it's fine to have things like this. Now, there are things that people are using that are basically running a script or running a cheat engine and stuff like that. That right there is specifically against the terms of service, and those people are stupid for running cheat engine, okay? Those people that are running cheat engine in an online game, you're asking for it, you know? You're asking for it. So Yoshi P may be looking into an in-game version. I'm not sure. If he is, that's great. But at the same time, I honestly think when it comes to DPS meters, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Like, really. I really do think they should leave it alone. If they're really going to ban people, especially streamers that might be running one of the things, honestly, like, seriously, ask yourself this question. Who is a DPS meter hurting? Who is it hurting, and how does it hurt the game? How does a meter that tracks numbers hurt you in a game involving getting the biggest number? And it's not affecting other players' performance or affecting other people's experience. You know, the ego of those at the bottom, it's not really hurting ego at all, because if you're stepping into a high-end raid and you have an ego, well, then you're not going to get through that raid anyway. So, no. But again, this is not, I don't think they're getting this from players complaining. I think this is, I'll be honest, I don't know where it's coming from. So, I understand why people might be scared of it, because it might breed toxicity. But honestly, y'all, here's my thing. People have been using this kind of add-on in 14 for quite some time now. And overall, the 14 community is still a pretty positive place. So take that into account as well. I think they should leave it alone, but that's just my opinion.